Hello and welcome back to Rey's Gaming and more things you didn't know in Monster Hunter Wilds. It's been a little while since we've done one of these episodes. We're going to bounce around a few different topics, but of course with the release of Arch-Tempered Rey Dau, I'd like to do a little bit of focus on that, just for some tips and things you might not have realised that could help you with that. So let's get into it. If you're going for the new challenge to defeat Rey Dau in under 13 minutes to get that A rank and that awesome looking pendant, then there's a few bits of advice that I'd like to give you. The very first thing is, if you're going to do it solo, then you want to make sure you turn off those support hunters. Come to settings, and here you can do multiplayer settings and go to only players, or maybe even restrict this to one player to completely remove them. In my experience doing it, they were not worth it. Ultimately, they're going to add a huge amount of health to the target, and then they're not actually going to provide a lot of value themselves. In fact, at one point, there was a flash pod used that wasn't at an optimal time for me to maximize DPS. And you only have so many flash pods before Rey becomes resistant, so I don't want to waste them. Speaking of which, make sure that you have flash pods equipped. The first 3 are going to be a free knockdown on him when he's in the air. This interrupts a bunch of the leap up to the air and drag the wings, or maybe the aerial shot that's very devastating. Just fire it at your own feet, and only do this when you're ready to optimize your DPS, such as ready to put on corrupted mantle or whatever. Also, I recommend lure pods and early into the fight. There's that boulder that drops down for a free DPS window, but don't forget the fact that it's a grounding pillar, so this can help reduce the effect of the lightning in the area of play around that pillar drop, which obviously is good, and the sooner the better. Now, another thing you want to look into is thunder resistance. Building this up through your gear can be great. If you're running any latent power sets, then you're probably going to be running 3-piece of Rey Dau's gamma set, which thankfully has pretty decent thunder resistance for obvious reasons. You can also literally decorate for it. As you can see, there are 3 levels to it, giving us different amounts plus defense. But if your gear is giving you enough, you don't necessarily need to do this, but for one slot, it is worth it, definitely. Before you ever actually go for the hunt though, make sure you're buffed up with a feast buff, whether you've got a free one waiting for, or you go to the Grand Hub and eat there at the canteen. As you'll likely know, the canteen has a new menu that lets you guarantee get one of the feasts. And why this matters so much is because you get increased attack compared to 3, you get 5, and then you get defense on top where you wouldn't normally get that for eating for attack. And then you also get plus 10 to your element resistances, whatever you go for. So that's going to help you have that thunder resistance and prevent the stun and prevent the one-shot potential. Rey's weakness in specific then is the all-important ice. It's not amazing, but my advice is if you're going to use an element, you obviously want to use ice, and maybe you could use like an artian weapon that's got all the usual rolls, but with a tiny bit of element on it, which is ice, if you really want to min-max. Personally though, I'm not looking to optimize my weapon for one specific fight, and you know, doing it in 13 minutes is very well doable. So I like paralysis because it gives you that extra DPS window. You've got the boulder drop, you've got 3 flash pods, and you've got the procer paralysis. That's at least 5 free DPS windows. And another thing to be aware of is the scar locations. You can open up a tempered scar on the leg and also the tail, but the one that matters the most is on the leg because it's going to be a guaranteed knockdown because this is a bipedal monster. When you focus strike that wound, it will cause a knockdown, which is another way to get a DPS window. Having good awareness of these things, maximizing your DPS windows is great, and since we can't capture and end the hunt that way, you might as well at least use one pitfall trap in the hunt, since that's going to be another DPS window. Now, something that I'm seeing a lot on the Reddit is people crying out in confusion and anger over people not setting up their pop-up camps correctly. As you likely know, the fight starts in the nest of Rey Dau at Area 17 in the Windward Plains. And so the nearest tent that you can get in a pop-up camp is pretty far away, sadly all the way over here in Area 16. It's this one, Area 16 Bone Desert. You want this setup in general for the Windward Plains. If you're ever fighting Rey Dau, it's great. But since we're starting there, you need this. One final thing, if you're really try-harding this, is to set up a buffing set. I have one that's both buffing and gathering using the sealed hood, Chatacabra chest, the battle gloves and waist, and Azu's pants. This gives me a nice long skill list, but most importantly for a buffing set is speed eating, item prolonger, and free meal. As I take my buffs, sometimes they cost nothing. As I take my buffs, speed eating means that they're consumed really quickly. And most importantly is item prolonger, increasing the effect duration of any of these buffs by 50%. So your usual demon drug, that lasts 30 minutes. With item prolonger 3, that means the buff lasts 45 minutes. This also works for your might seeds, your demon powder, that kind of thing. So what I do while I'm in the hub or whatever is I put on my buffing set, I take all my buffs, swap to my real set that I'm going to actually do the fight on, enjoying some buffs at the start of the fight, and then I'll rebuff during the fight at one point, maybe take a might pill at optimal DPS windows for its brief buff period. This is very min-maxy, but you know, it's just kind of something I'm used to doing, and definitely worth it in the context of this challenge. For our next thing about Arch-Tempered Rey Dau, it's just some good news. I mean, we can all be pretty happy about this. Obviously, there was the controversy that happened with the Dashagama Hun at the arena launch. When it comes to the rankings and the problems that created, well, everyone was cheating, it felt like. And it's not exactly something that's completely gone. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I believe Nathan here that he actually beat Arch-Tempered Rey Dau in 18 seconds. Nor any of this front page, and it's that familiar, well, these people are obviously cheating situation. Well, it turns out that the people that achieved a 1 minute and 30 second clear don't seem to be able to actually have their time register in this event. So while we definitely do have some cheaters here once again, there is a reduction, and the fact that the people who cheated originally can't register their time, it's at least something. The system clearly still has a way to go, just looking at it now, but it's nice that there is some punishment for the blatant cheaters. And I do think their current solution of just saying, hey, you need to be in 13 minutes or less if you want the cool pendant, is for the best right now. Now, one final topic to do with Arch-Tempered Rey Dau that's still very relevant and kind of useful universally is the idea of a second weapon. And I don't know about you, but I definitely barely ever swap weapon. It's probably a bad habit of mine just not being used to wilds, but we're pretty far in for me to be saying that, right? So it's something that I'm trying to challenge myself to do and make the most of. And in the context of Rey Dau and try to beat this timer, this is the best time to take advantage. And it's very simple. Just equip a hunting horn in your second slot. And there are a bunch that can be used for different purposes. It's all about what the weapon actually has in regards to melodies. So you could buff yourself up with something simple like attack up large and defense up large. You could go for health recovery and recovery speed for some sustain with the Rathian hunting horn that's great for support, by the way. And there's the classic gore magala, which is going to give you affinity up and health recovery in one melody. While it's true that when you swap off your hunting horn, the buff isn't going to last as long, but there is a reason that speedrunners are still doing this kind of thing. As they begin a fight, they're buffing up. It only takes a second to apply like one buff and then get on with a fight. So it's something I'm going to try make myself do a little bit more of, and just a little suggestion as well to maybe help your Arch-Tempered times. Right, some more general things then. Starting with a pretty cool detail that was brought up by Gaijin Hunter, friend of the channel, and also someone else on Twitter, kind of extending the topic out by the name of MHU Tweets. So thank you to both of you for your coverage of this topic. I'm only going to talk about it briefly, so I'd recommend both Gaijin's full video about this topic, as well as MHU Tweets and their thread about it. So I just want to mention a cool highlight and concept for it. The Blossom Dance has ended, but with it did come that song, that quote-unquote new song that the Diva would sing. This Blossom Dance song was actually known originally as the Song of the Beginning, found in Monster Hunter DOS, which was a Monster Hunter game only released in Japan. And then we heard the song again in 4U, in which you had to defeat a high-rank Rathalos to unlock the song. Whereas, you know, in DOS, you'd need to defeat King Shakalaka. Once the song was unlocked there, you'd then have the songstress, aka the Diva of the game then, actually sing it, which is something we've covered before. The whole Diva concept isn't original in Wilds, but a returning mechanic from DOS. Though, there have been kind of quote-unquote divas in different games, like for example, Hanoa and Minoto in Rise. You know, if you open up the game, you'll find one of them singing to you, that kind of thing. But anyway, compared to DOS, you know, where we're just showing up in Wilds at the right time, in DOS, you mostly needed to actually unlock the songs. But then that would unlock different things. Like after playing this version of the Blossom Dance song, the Song of Beginning in DOS, the first time you do that, you then unlock a new locale, the Forest and Hills. And by following that, eventually that would lead into the treasure items for silver and gold wraths. So the songs were relevant and important for progression. So it is interesting to see these songs return in Wilds in the way we have them now. There's yet another connection to DOS and 4U Shore, which, you know, now there's quite a stack of those connections. And then we have all the big theories to do with the Diva and her connection to White Fatalis that come to mind. Would she be the key to that? Will we play and unlock a song, have her sing it, and then that accidentally summons Fatalis or something like that? I mean, maybe none of it will happen, but it does feel like something's there. We covered in this series the whole topic of the Diva and her potential connection to White Fatalis, so you can go check out that video if you'd like. But what do you guys think? Is there more to the Diva and the songs that she's singing, and why? Okay, for these next ones, we're going to see some funny quick ones. Like, for example, the fact that you can do this with a Chatacabra. I've got a barrel bomb here, and I'm throwing it into the mouth of a charging Chatacabra, which causes a unique animation. Chatacabra stops the charge being interrupted, wraps his tongue around the bomb and seemingly tries to eat it, only for it to explode in his face. I saw like a clip of this on Twitter an eon ago when the game came out, and thought that that was like a weird Photoshop because the barrel bomb was kind of laggy in that clip I remember seeing. But I wanted to take the time to see if it was something that was real, and sure enough it is. It only works when Chatacabra's actually charging. I don't know if this is the most relevant thing for the fact that Chatacabra is not the most threatening enemy, right? But it is pretty incredible detail, very unexpected. But it does make me wonder, does this work with any other monsters in Wilds? Is there any other unique eating animations of barrel bombs like this? Let me know. Okay, crazy detail that I saw on Reddit that I want to share with you guys. This was posted on the Monster Hunter Wilds Reddit by AJ Crowley. So thank you for sharing this clip. This is crazy. Gypsyros's playing dead trick actually works on other monsters. Specifically, and it makes sense, right? Nerzilla. Nerzilla hunts Gypsyros, if you're unaware, and is quite literally wearing the skin of Gypsyros as its primary target, giving it nice thunder resistance is the idea. There is a unique interaction between Nerzilla and Gypsyros that you can spot at times, where Nerzilla is obviously hunting Gypsyros and begins wrapping it in its webbing, cocooning it in this horrible state. But with Gypsyros not being a complete pushover, it is able to just barely activate its horn flashbang and force Nerzilla off long enough to break out of the semi-formed cocoon. Pretty cool animation that you might catch at times. But obviously Gypsyros does the play dead thing, where we can even carve it and then it surprise smacks us as it gets up. I guess it actually worked out this special move, if that's what we can call it, to basically get Nerzilla to leave it alone as its primary prey. This kind of calls into question, a horrifying question really, is the idea that Nerzilla, is it not interested in dead Gypsyros then? It wants a living one in regards to the skin. It doesn't seem necessary at all that the Gypsyros is alive for that process, but maybe this is just some horrible sadistic nature of Nerzilla being revealed. So I really appreciate AJ Crowley posting that, but it's fantastic levels of detail that I would not see in normal gameplay. Speaking of not seeing things in normal gameplay, when Tempered Mizutsune came out, they added some new gestures, like this ninja jump. So if you find it in the communication tab, you can see the shinobi pose, and then we have the vanish sign. One of them, you know, you go a little bit off the ground, we're hanging in the air. The palico's doing his best, but if you do the vanish sign, we get a lot higher, don't we? And we can actually just hang in the air like this. It turns out this actually has individual hitbox or frames. So as my character is up there, he's physically up there, which means if an attack was to go under me, it wouldn't hit me. This was best shown by Surin KK on Twitter in this clip against Tempered Mizu, where it's doing that beam attack and they use this leaping gesture to hang in the air and dodge it. This kind of thing reminds me of back in World when we had the Final Fantasy collab event. And there's that one gesture where you leapt up into the air and came down a second later, and that could be used to actually avoid super moves and such. Maybe not as effective as that, but you can just infinitely hang in the air, which means you can dodge attacks like that quite easily if you have it on maybe your radial wheel or whatever. So maybe actually a useful thing, if not just a funny meme. Alright, for the last topic, I want to bring up the Zoshia weapons because there was something pretty incredible about the naming of each one that goes beyond just random gibberish, I suppose. Each one has its own completely unique name. And there was this post quite a while back talking about how they're actually named after angels and archangels from different religious traditions. So I want to reference some of those. The greatsword here then, Vaya, references the angel of willpower and courage. Whereas the longsword name, Raphael, is very likely tied to Raphael, the archangel of protection and healing. For sword and shield, we have Michael, or Michael, the commander of heaven. For say, the hammer, we have Uriah, or Uriel, the archangel of wisdom and knowledge, which is quite funny for the hammer, which is perhaps maybe more simple-minded than that. Another cool one is the hunting horn, which is called Geriel, or Gabriel, God's messenger and herald. But it's pretty cool. I want to share with you the proper post itself by Torinat Hashu, who makes these connections and explains them in proper detail. But I mean, when you look at the armor and consider the implications of it, it is quite the demonic and angelic theme. You have the angelic side on the top and then the demonic on the bottom, or vice versa, depending on the set. And to continue on from that, if you didn't realize, and it's something I've never really paid attention to, if you look at a piece of equipment and the info page, and then come to the second or third page, like say we're looking at the decorations here, on that page right there, and only that page, you have this little bit of lore about the equipment you're wearing, which is pretty cool. Some of them are really interesting, but obviously I want to link this to Xochitl right now. Head armor imbued with Xochitl's soul. It fights the urge to eradicate all. That's just the helm. It's slightly different on all the pieces. Restrains the impulse to crush everything in its path. Suppresses the desire to devastate the world. All of this feeling very Fatalis. Resists the instinct to obliterate all living things. Like this is instinctual. Denies its all-consuming thirst for extermination. Relax. That doesn't feel very angel-y, but it definitely feels very demonic-y. But there you have it, our newest episode of things you might not have known about in Monster Worlds. As always, guys, if you do have anything you'd like to add to the series, or continue on from a topic we talked about today, then let us know in the comments and we might just come back to talk about it. Until next time then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.